Welcome to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and their journey. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I am the co-host of this show. And if you've listened to this podcast before, you know that every week we feature smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs of all kinds of companies and organizations. We've had Netflix and Kinko's, YPO, EO, Activation Blizzard, Lending Tree, Grubhub. Check out the archives, lots of great episodes in there. And this episode is brought to you by EO San Francisco, which is part of Entrepreneurs Organization, which is a global peer-to-peer network of more than 18,000 influential business owners, 200 or so chapters in 60 or so countries. And if you're the founder, co-founder, owner, or controlling shareholder of a company that generates over $1 million a year in revenue, and you want to connect with other like-minded successful entrepreneurs, EO is for you. And you can learn more about EO San Francisco at eonetwork.org/San Francisco. And my guest here today, first of all, I want to give a shout out to Paige Buck of Kennedy Events, who nominated our guest. It is Megan Flatt. She's a big business growth strategist on a mission to make entrepreneurship easier. And she believes that you can have a thriving business, community, and a life. You don't need more time. You need more focus, which leads us to her book. She's got a book that's called Focused: Reclaim Your Time, Ditch Overwhelm, and Do Less Better. And she's also the founder of Focus Sessions. And I've known Megan for many years. We live not too far from one another. Our kids are around the same age. So it's great to bring you back and to interview you again here, Megan. Well, first of all, let's start with the book. You've got lots of things going on. You got young kids. Why add a book to your to-do list? What inspired that idea?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I think, like many people, I think a book has probably been on my bucket list for a while, but I think it's mostly because I wanted a more clear and concise way to talk about my message. Through blog posts and newsletters and podcast interviews and all of these other mediums that we use to get our message out. It's not always sequential. It's not always in the formulaic order, if you will, that someone can really take action on it. And so I really wanted to put my ideas. I really love teaching. I love empowering people to do better. I love really hands-on learning, taking action. And so I really wanted to have a way for people who were interacting with my message to really take action. And so the book seemed like the best way to take all of the little pieces of things that I talk about in all sorts of different settings and put them into a sequential, actionable order.
And one of the things you start with is, look, we've got this kind of hustle culture mentality that a lot of people, you talk to people all the time and they're like, how you doing? Busy. I'm so busy. People say that all the time. And it's like a badge of pride that people wear, an emblem that they have on the front of their chest or something like that. So let's unpack that for starters.
Absolutely. I mean, and I even knowing it and knowing that I was going to be writing a book and writing about why that's not the way to go. I was researching even just to put quotes about entrepreneurship in the book to kind of sprinkle throughout the book on kind of the page breaks and things like that. And when I was researching quotes about entrepreneurship, the first few quotes that popped up were entrepreneurs never sleep, entrepreneurs work harder than anyone else, right. Something like that. Like even it's like, it's just baked into the culture, especially of entrepreneurship that we have. There's a quote that I used to love to quote, that entrepreneurs are the only people that are willing to work 80 hours a week to keep from working 40 hours a week. Yeah. And I used to love that quote. Yeah. And then it's like, but wait,
yes.
wait a minute. Is this what we want to be doing? And this idea that hustle culture is just that it's like, you have to work harder. You have to, and I mean, I'm all for working hard, but there's just this piece of that you have to do more, be better, work harder, produce more, turn out more, sleep less, work more hours. And I think it's driving all of us to the point of burnout, to where we're not enjoying the reason we went into business in the first place, the reason we decided to kind of go out on our own and create these businesses. But this idea that you just have to work a little bit harder, hang on a little bit longer. I think it's killing us. And I think it's killing, the creativity and the ingenuity and everything else that is the good part of entrepreneurship.
Okay. So, but the counterbalance to that is, well, we need to make a living.
Yep.
And especially if we are an entrepreneur, we have a business we want to grow, we have big ambitions, growth oriented. How do you balance out those two? How do you grow your business without falling prey to the hustle culture, approach that so many people fall into?
Yeah. Well, I like to call it, we just need to switch to focus culture. So it's not about, and that's where this, in the tagline of the book, do less better. It's not just about doing less and therefore achieving less. It's about doing less for the sake of doing it better, and switching our mentality, switching our self-talk, our affirmations, if you will, from these hustle culture affirmations like I'm too busy, I don't have enough time, my calendar is packed, all of these things like burnout is inevitable, all of these things that we kind of think come along with that hustle mentality, and switching it to I have exactly the time I need, I'm in charge of my day. And so it's not about not working hard, it's not about even putting in long hours, but it's about really approaching things with intentionality. And that's really where that idea of focus culture comes in. It's doing what you need to do, but doing it with intentionality.
And part of that intentionality is being deliberate and intentional about what you put on your to-do list and
Exactly.
putting that together. Talk about that one.
Yeah. So I love, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. I feel like we could talk the whole 20 minutes just about to-do lists, but I think that we have a tendency, it's kind of semantics. When I ask a group of entrepreneurs or a room, when I ask people, hey, what's on your to-do list right now? People will say things like, launch a podcast or redo my website or create a new program for my clients. Like people shout these kind of things out, and those actually aren't to-do list items. So those are, and they're not even goals really. What they are actually is projects. And I think what trips us up is we have a tendency to put projects on our to-do list. So a project is a multi-step project, and a task is the smallest unit of work. And really, tasks are what go on our to-do list. And so when you look at your to-do list and you're putting something on your to-do list, like launch a podcast or even write a blog post, that's not actually a task. It's not actually a to-do list item. It's actually, I like to joke that the first step of getting out of overwhelm, when you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling like you have too much to do. The first step to get out of overwhelm is to temporarily get more overwhelmed. But what I mean by that is take that one thing that's on your to-do list that's, write my blog post for the week, and turn it into the 5 tasks or more that actually go into writing a blog post. So you need to outline the blog post. You need to write the blog post. You need to edit the blog post. You need to find the images for the blog post. Or, even if you're passing that off to a team member, there's still multiple steps. And I think what happens in that to-do list overwhelm is that we're putting projects on our to-do list, and then we don't have adequate time blocked out to do that big of a project, or we don't really know what that entails. And so not having that clear definition of what done is, I think then trips us up. And then it's like, oh gosh, I don't have enough time. I need more time. I need to work late. I need to work on the weekends. I'll write my blog post after the kids go to bed or whatever it is, instead of breaking it down into those individual tasks and saying, okay, I can outline the blog post. I have 15 minutes before my next client call. I'll outline the blog post, and then being able to move things forward like that.
Yeah. Now, where in all of this do we make time for the deeper work, the deeper thinking that is necessary in any particular business? If we have, lists of so many different things to do, how do we carve it in?
Yeah. So I actually think what we have to do is we have to flip that script, because I think that's what people try to do, is they try to carve it in, right? It's like, here's all of the other things that I have to do in my business, in my family, in my life, all of these other things. And then I need to try to find time for that important work, that deep work, like you said, that the thing that really moves your business forward, moves your life forward. And really what we have to do is we have to start by putting that in first. I'm sure you've seen that video or that meme that goes around on, social media every once in a while, where the professor is going to put the rocks in the jar. And he's kind of talking about the rocks being like the most, your family and, and all the other things. But that's exactly how we need to treat our time, and our week or our days is that glass jar. And what a lot of us do is we put the sand in first, right? We're replying to the email, we're replying to the client calls, we're replying to our team on Slack, we're paying bills, we're sending invoices, we're doing all of these little, these nagging tasks that kind of they're the sand that fills up the jar. And then maybe we try to put in some pebbles, and the pebbles are, working with our clients, recording podcast interviews and all of these things. And then now your jar is filled with sand and pebbles. And when you go to put the rock in, there's no room left for the rock. But if we just flip that around, if we start with the empty jar and we put, and I like to call it your highest contribution. So asking yourself, what is my highest contribution to my business in this season? So for me, when I was writing the book, writing was my highest contribution to my business. And so I needed to start with my calendar, and I needed to put in the big rock of writing time first. And then once you have the rock in the jar, then you can put the pebbles in. Then the pebbles start to fill around the rock. And then there's still room for the sand, but the sand just has to go in last. And honestly, I saw someone actually physically do it, and you can fit just about the same amount in just by putting the rocks in first, because the sand and the pebbles, fill in all around the cracks.
It's such a great metaphor. Yeah, I've seen that done as well. And it just works so well for that. Now, so one of the things that you say in the book is that you have the time that you need. It's just about finding the time to focus and being realistic about the time that you actually have. I imagine you get pushback at times from people about that, saying, no, I don't have enough time. I need more time.
Yeah. Well, everything in the book is backed in science. So it's not just like my thoughts or like, wouldn't it be great if I'm just going to tell you that you have enough time? And everything in the book is backed by research or science or, different explorations of work habits and the way the human brain works. And so really this comes down to, I love this analogy of a juggler versus a plate spinner, if you think of like the circus. And so many of us, and we even use it as a term, like, oh, I'm juggling so many balls right now. Like we even use it as a term. If you think about a juggler has to rhythmically touch each item, and they have to keep their eye on all, 6 balls that they're juggling at the same time. And they have to pay attention to all of those at the same time. And if they drop one ball, the other ones usually come crashing to the ground too. And it's really hard to go from, I don't know, I actually can't juggle, so who knows, but it seems like it's really hard to go from juggling 6 balls to only juggling 5. Like you can't really just set one down. But if we switch the analogy over to the plate spinner can put intentionality and put focus and energy into getting one plate spinning. And then once that plate is spinning on its own, then they can move on and start spinning the other plate. And they can actually step back and kind of assess the whole situation and be able to say, oh, that plate over there is starting to slow down. My self-care plate is starting to spin down. I need to go over there and put some energy into spinning it. And now I can look over here and see that, oh, my marketing plate needs some energy. So by focusing in and giving energy to, we're still doing all of the things. Again, it's back to kind of, it's not about doing less, but it's about, instead of trying to juggle all of them at the same time, it's putting focus and energy into one at a time. We all know, we've all heard the research at this point that our brains can't actually multitask. So it's a building from there. Yeah. It's instead of trying to be, okay, now I'm going to do here and then I'm going to run and do this thing. It's like, let's block out that time for that big rock. Let's put it on our calendar. Your brain is only designed to focus for somewhere probably in the 90-minute range. Maybe as much as 2 hours, for some people as low as 20 or 30 minutes. That's the most your brain as an organ can focus. So putting in 60 minutes, 90 minutes, I'm going to focus. I'm working on a book. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to put my noise canceling headphones on. I'm going to turn off Slack. I'm going to turn off notifications, and I'm going to spend 90 minutes working on the book. And then I'm going to put that down, and then I'm going to move. to reply to the messages, pay the invoices, do all of the other things. But if you think about that, if you put in that 90 minutes, even if you just do it you do it once a week for 52 weeks, that's 75 hours.
Yeah.
That's significant progress on an important, impactful project.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask about schedules, how to set up a schedule that works for you, because I know that you're a busy mom, got a couple of kids, spouse, a business, all that kind of stuff. How do you advise people to set up a schedule that works for them?
Yeah. So two things. One is really, and this is something that I talk about a lot in the book, and I get on my soapbox about this, is that really getting away, so much of what we are taught about time management and productivity and getting things done comes from a historical perspective that's just not necessarily true for all of us anymore. It comes from a capitalistic, agriculture-based, industrial-based organization where bosses and factory owners and farmers wanted all of their workers working on the exact same schedule because that was the most efficient way to produce a widget or farm a field. So we built in a lot of these like cultural, moral principles, like the early bird gets the worm, because it was a lot easier to teach people that like starting work at 8 a.m. is a moral principle, and then make them feel good or bad about themselves for showing up to work in what really was just the most efficient way to, again, build a widget or farm a field. And so especially as entrepreneurs, like, we need to get away from that. And we need to understand that our bodies, our brains, our family structures, all of these things are different and unique. And so you really have to kind of take back ownership of what does your schedule, when is your best time of day to focus? When are you an early bird, or are you better at focusing at 10 p.m. at night? Are you better at, focusing early in the week and then having a lighter schedule later in the week? Do you, does it work better for you to work out in the morning and then start your work? And like really honoring that, and not letting, like using air quotes, like not letting society tell us that we have to work 9 to 5, or we have to get up at 5 in the morning, or whatever this message is. And so really, really honoring, and there's an exercise in the book to map your energy. So really thinking about different times of the day, different times of the week, depending on what type of hormones circulate through your body. People with a lot of testosterone in their system tend to cycle on a 24-hour cycle. People with a lot of estrogen in their system tend to cycle on a 28-day cycle. So we're going to have different peaks and valleys of energy based on what hormones are present in our body at any given time.
Yeah.
And most productivity, and when my book first came out, because of Amazon's algorithm, I was able to get to 30, the 30th book in the time management category.
Nice.
But out of those 30 books, 27 of them were written by men. So if the majority of the messaging that's coming out about how we should structure our days comes from people that cycle on a 24-hour cycle, that have more testosterone in their system, it's going to look different. If you're different, if your body operates different, your schedule is going to look different. And it's not bad. You're not lazy. You're not, you're not a problem. So that's the very first part, is just really honoring, what? I need to, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I need to go take a walk. Like I am myself, I am an early bird. By 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm horizontal on the couch. Like I'm no good anymore. So really honoring that. And I think that's the very first piece. And then starting to put in the pieces of your schedule. I like to say that you need to decide what your grade A time is. Your grade A time is the time when you are the most focused and your distractions are at the lowest. And then you need to decide what your grade A tasks are, right? What are those most important, highest contribution tasks? And then you need to try to line those up so that you're not necessarily having a team meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning, if your highest contribution is writing the content for your book and your highest time to focus is 9 in the morning, then that's when you need to be doing the writing, even if that's the best time for your team to meet.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because you know this, becoming a parent, you get to observe these patterns. Like my wife is much more of a morning person. I'm much more of a late evening kind of person.
Yeah.
We've got my son, Toby, who's 9, who puts himself to bed by 6:30.
Yeah.
And then his younger sister, who is 4.5, last night she was up until 10. Like we couldn't get the kid to go to sleep. So it's amazing to think that we used to be this society that was kind of a cookie cutter or one size fits all
Right.
type of mold for everyone.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And I think a lot of times we, especially for entrepreneurs, part of the reason we go into entrepreneurship is for that flexibility.
Yeah.
But then we end up, one of my clients, she jokes, she says, I'm the worst boss I ever had. Right. Like sometimes, we go into entrepreneurship for the flexibility, but then we're so hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, I got to get up at 5 a.m. I got to work until 9 p.m. I've got to do it this way. I've got to do it this way.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I love this topic. How to focus, basically. Some different strategies for making sure that you can focus in a deep way. You mentioned going on a walk or, working the right time of day. Any other suggestions or advice around how to maximize your focus?
Yeah, absolutely. A quick side to how to maximize focus is I think one of the really important things about focus is being really clear on what you need to focus on. And so that kind of goes back a little bit to what we were talking about our to-do list or about really defining what kind of our highest contribution is. Because I think what happens is sometimes we might be aware hey, 9 a.m. is a really good time for me to focus. And you kind of sit down at your desk and you're like, okay, time to focus. And then you're a little bit like, well, I kind of need to pay that bill and I probably should write it. Right. And we kind of just float around. And then we get to the end of that time that we had set aside to focus. And we're like, man, I wasn't very focused. Well, it wasn't necessarily that you weren't focused. It was that you kind of didn't define what you needed to focus on. And so we, in the program that I run, Focus Sessions, we talk about 3 buckets that we feel like is a good use of focus time. So the first bucket is exactly what you said, deep work. So it's that work that I like to think of like the Eisenhower matrix. It's that square that's the important but not urgent things. It's writing the book. It's creating new sales copy. It's doing podcast interviews. It's the thing that is going to move your business forward, but isn't necessarily like the most pressing thing. So that's the thing that you need that flow state for. So that's deep work. So that's a really good thing to use focus time for. The next thing is planning and visioning. I think that as busy entrepreneurs, we often don't spend enough time planning and visioning. We just kind of jump into like, oh, I need to get this thing done. Let me just jump in. But again, the research tells us that I can't remember the exact number, but it's like for every 10 minutes you spend, or for every 1 minute you spend planning, you save 10 minutes on execution. So taking 90 minutes of focus time and planning out, okay, this is what my book launch is going to look like. This is what this next campaign is going to look like. This is what my kids' summer schedule is going to look like, and therefore my work schedule. So taking some time to plan and vision is a really good use of focus time. And then we have one bucket that's a little bit controversial. We call it the clear the deck bucket. And this is where you cross those nagging tasks off your list, because those are the things that are clogging your brain and preventing you from doing focus work. So if you sit down to write your book or do the thing that you need to focus on, and you're thinking like, oh, but I have to remember to reply to that client, and my team member is waiting for an answer, and I've got to return that permission slip for school, then it's really hard for your brain to get into focus. So sometimes you need to do a clear the deck session. Those are also the things that can take all day if we let them. So by saying, okay, I'm going to take the next 60 minutes, 20 minutes, 90 minutes, and I'm going to just bang through all of these things, you kind of close those, proverbial computer tabs, and then you can move on to, okay, now take a break, go for a walk, get some water, and then move into the focus time.
Man, I certainly do not want to show you my computer tabs. I am definitely guilty of that.
Same.
Yes. Last section of the book is focused on raising your resilience when there's too much to do. What are your tips on that?
Yeah, I think the first part is just, and that's why it's in the book, is just acknowledging it, because it's really great to say whenever I say do less better to people, they're like, great, yes, I want to do less better. But the truth of the matter is our calendars are going to get too full. Our to-do lists are going to get too long. We're going to have busy times of our day, of our life, of our, seasons of our business. And so the whole section on raising your resilience is really like, okay, let's acknowledge that there's going to be an ebb and flow. Let's acknowledge that there's going to be busy times. And then using some practical tools if you want to reduce that. But a lot of it is just acknowledging it. And again, it's all about intentionality. And so my husband and I used to joke, especially when the kids were younger, although I'm not sure it's changed now that they're older, but we used to always joke that it's like things will calm down in 2 weeks, right? It's always like, once we get through this thing, things will calm down. Once we get back from vacation, things will calm down. Once we get through this thing in our business, things will calm down. And then 6 years, it's been 6 years of, 2 weeks at a time. But I think that if you can do that intentionally, if you can say, okay, I'm about to, launch a new program in my business. And so it's going to be busier for this next 3-week time period. And you can let your team know, you can let your family know, you can make some strategic choices of maybe some things that you're going to let go. Like, hey, for the next 3 weeks, I'm not going to do as many networking events while I'm kind of in the throes of launching this. But again, it's all about that container, kind of back to that same container. It's like, okay, this is for a 3-week period. And then after the 3-week period, there needs to be a time of rest and kind of recalibration.
Yeah. Well, Megan, this has been great. Tell us about what Focus Sessions is for those who don't know.
Yeah, I like to say it's like a gym, but for productivity. Focus Sessions are 90-minute hosted co-working sessions. They happen on Zoom. It's all virtual. And we offer 16 a week. So there's up to 4 focus sessions a day. And you show up and a trained focus session host is going to lead you through about an 8-minute focus flow that, again, is backed in science, a scientific way to help you get into a flow state. Then everyone declares what they're going to work on for a little bit of group accountability. And then you spend the next 83 minutes working on your most important work. And our members, not only are they getting more done during those focus sessions, but they're actually saying that their focus overall is increasing. And we've heard things like, not only have people launched programs or launched things that they've been wanting to launch for weeks or months or years, but also that people are no longer needing to work in the evenings or the weekends because they're so focused during their focus sessions. They're getting so much done that they're able to close their computer at the end of the day and take their kids to the beach or read a book or hang out with family or whatever the other things are that are important to them in their life. And that's really what we want.
That's really what it's all about, right?
Exactly.
This is great. Megan, where can people go to check out the book and focus sessions?
Yeah, so you can head to focus-sessions.com to find out about focus sessions, and then add a /focused book to find out about the book. Or if you land on the focus session website, there's a link to the book right there. And we've got some awesome bonuses. There's a free workbook, a downloadable workbook that comes with it. So you can work through some of the exercises in the book, as well as a Spotify playlist for focus, a bookmark on how to plan your week, all sorts of fun bonuses in that bonus section. And that's
very cool
on that same site.
I have not heard a Spotify bonus session.
I'll send it to you.
That's the first time I've ever heard that as a bonus. I love it. That's great. Now I'm like super curious. Like what music is it? Like what's on that list? I want to know.
I'm gonna send it to you as soon as we end our interview.
Awesome. All right, Megan. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast. This episode is powered by Rise 25. Please subscribe and check out future episodes.